Hello there, Ben Bowers, the Spirit Specialist, and I am here today to talk to you about Mackmyra Limousin Seasonal Edition, a brand new release from Mackmyra, and rumour has it this is the last of what is their seasonal bottlings, one of which you may have seen the video that I did of the Björksav, which is just up there if you can see it up the top, which was their birch sap wine. And it's not it wasn't a finish as such, it's just that's kind of the predominant maturing cask that's being used. Likewise with this, as I'll go into a second, this is not just Limousin oak casks, there is also a number of other casks that have been used to kind of balance flavours and add some complexity. But this is a brand new release. I think it's released tomorrow at the time of recording, and probably going to be in high demand because this is, as I say, rumoured to be the very last of the seasonal releases. Mackmyra are doing a few changes within the business. They're kind of streamlining their product range, and it does look like the seasonal bottlings are probably going to disappear. So before I tell you what this tastes like, let me give you a bit of background information about Mackmyra, but also this bottling. Mackmyra was founded in 1998 by 8 friends from the Swedish Royal Institute of Technology, who, during an annual ski trip, realised they had all brought along Scotch single malt whisky to share with each other and wondered why there was no Swedish equivalent. Mackmyra is named after a small village near Valbo, southeast of the town of Gavle. The team worked for 4 years on recipes and production techniques before building the main distillery in 2002. A second distillery named Gravity was opened 6 miles away from the original distillery in 2011. The 35-metre high building utilises 7 floors to move the production process down from the top floor where the barley is delivered. Milling, mashing, fermentation and distillation take place on each lowering level, which saves considerable energy. It uses 45% less than the original distillery, and the business continues to work on saving even more. The master distiller is Angela D'Orazio, who was originally a brand ambassador for Glenmorangie before joining Mackmyra in 2002 as part of a tasting panel for developing recipes. She came on board full-time in 2004 after it became apparent she was head and shoulders above everyone else in the team in terms of being able to discern subtleties in flavour profiles, and she continues to be a passionate figurehead for the distillery. Mackmyra is a very experimental brand and regularly releases bottlings matured or finished in different types of casks. Released in March 2022, Mackmyra Limousin is the last of the seasonal releases from the distillery. It's a 13-year-old whisky matured predominantly in Limousin oak cognac barrels sourced from the highly regarded Maison Ferrand, with some additional stock also matured into seasoned Oloroso casks, Swedish oak and ex-bourbon barrels, plus a small amount in casks that previously held a raspberry fruit wine. No colour is added and no chilled filtration takes place, and it's bottled at 46.1% ABV. Okay, so an unusual combination of casks that have been used here. Now what I don't know, because that list was taken from Mackmyra's own website, but what I don't know is the percentages. Maison Ferrand I really like. They also own the Plantation brand, which is a fantastic set of rums. Now Plantation will be changing its name because of its historical connotations, but a brilliant set of rums, the majority of which are finished off in their cognac houses. Ferrand cognac is very good indeed. I don't sell a lot of it because it's quite hard for me to get hold of, but the ones that I have had in have been excellent, and I probably should get some more back in. I love the rums. So this is a brand that, as soon as I saw it was with Ferrand cognac casks, I was like, ooh, actually, this is probably going to tick some boxes for me. And I've started to find recently rums and whiskies that are finished in cognac barrels, I'm starting to really like. It's getting to the stage where it's a bit like that Pedro Jimenez maturation, where if it says there's a cognac barrel involved, I'm probably going to like it. Now, what cognac barrels can do with maturation is they do introduce quite a bit of sweetness. So to be honest, it very much is kind of like ticking those boxes for me as kind of that sweeter end, but I do appreciate that it potentially is a flavour profile that's going to be too sweet for some. For example, Plantation XO, aged rum, finished off in their cognac barrels, really sweet. I love it, but I know for some people it's too sweet, and I absolutely get that. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens with this. So, on the nose, almost appley. It really comes across as almost like a Calvados. Now, Apple Bloom was a Calvados matured, partly matured Mackmyra seasonal edition, and the apple was more prevalent on that. I
Wasn't a massive fan of apple bloom. It didn't really kind of push that note as much as I was hoping it to, but this is not too dissimilar. But this is not apple bloom. This is cognac casks, along with some other bits and pieces. Now there's that raspberry wine element. I'm wondering whether that fruitiness is coming through from there, but there is a definite rich fruitiness to it, but I'm now starting to get a little bit of a spiciness coming through, and it's still sweet. I'm very much getting apple, but I'm getting like a baked apple, almost like tart tatin, which I suppose is quite apt because we've got French oak casks and cognac and all this lot. There's an underlying spiciness in there, which is almost akin to, and I've had this before in a French restaurant where it was a tart tatin, but they actually cracked black pepper over the top of it. So you got little spikes of this heat coming through. And it's very, very subtle. It's not obvious at all, but it's just underlying the background. This definitely has a lot of sweetness to it though. There's a little bit of that drying oak. I think it's that combination of kind of oak and spice that's underlying that fruity sweetness. We're starting to get orchard fruits now. There's baked, poached pear, baked apple, kind of like cooked like a fruit pudding almost, with a caramelized sugar top or like a charred crumble, that sort of feel. This really is kind of like a desserty whiskey. Now that sweetness is held back on the palate. It comes through a little bit dry. The oakiness is a little bit more prevalent here. But that fruitiness is still present. It's more in the background and it kind of comes through at the finish. It starts off like a little bit drying, almost slightly tannic. And then we start to get that fruit. And again, it's apples, it's poached pear, it's orchard fruits, it's kind of peach and plum, not quite cherry, it's not quite dark fruits, but it's almost like an apple pie that's got some kind of maybe plums studded in, but you know, it's not an apple and plum pie. The nose is definitely sweeter than the palate, but this is still more on that sweeter side. I do like the fact that that oak is a little bit more prevalent on the palate. Otherwise, it would almost be, if the palate continued as the nose did, it would almost be maybe too sweet, even for me, and come across a little bit kind of liqueur-y. It's very, very well balanced though. I really, really like the combination of kind of oak, soft spice, and fruit, and sort of like there's a brown sugar element, there's a slightly caramelized sugar note, but it's not, it's kind of there in the background. There's a little bit of a nuttiness coming through now as well, kind of like hazelnuts, pecans, that sort of thing. I very much pitch this as a dessert whiskey. This really is kind of an after dinner. I don't smoke cigars, but I can imagine this would go very well with cigars. It's got a lot of kind of rich, round flavors that I think would complement a rich, round cigar. There's not really a smokiness on it though. I think this is unpeated spirit completely. I'm not too sure. If there is any peated spirit in here, I don't think it's a lot. You know, it might be just there that's kind of like accentuating some of the flavors in there. And that might be what was giving me that cracked black pepper feel, particularly on the nose. But it's not obvious. Possible, I don't know. You know, again, I'll kind of like, I should have done it first, but you know, I will go and have a look and just see if there is any peated spirit. But my gut is telling me if there is, it's a very, very small amount. And what's interesting is this has come out basically the same time as in the year as Björksav came out last year. And Björksav was absolutely apt for springtime. It really did evoke springtime. It was soft, it was floral, it was light, it was absolutely fantastic. This to me is more of an autumnal. This is much more of a, things are starting to get a little bit chilly. And to be fair, this is March in England, it is still a little bit chilly. But then this to me is a whiskey, is the nights are just starting to draw in. So kind of like September, summer's over, it's starting to cool down, the nights are starting to draw in. The leaves are starting to turn brown, but we aren't into the depths of winter. It's not freezing cold. This has got a warm, fruity, autumnal feel to it. I really, really like this. I like the nose probably more for my personal taste, but I'm glad that the palate doesn't continue that sweet feel that's on the nose, because I think it would potentially be too sweet. I like the fact that it's sort of reined back in. I love this combination of slightly dry oak that's just kind of stopping things becoming too sweet and kind of too sickly almost. If that dryness wasn't there, I think it would be a little bit sickly, to be honest. But I'm loving those fruit elements, that kind of like fruit crumble, you know, predominantly apples and pears in a crumble. It's got a slightly caramelized topping on it, but it's warm. It's kind of like an after dinner, you know, if you smoke cigars, as I say, you know, I think this would go really well with cigar. There's lots and lots going on here. It's a shame that Mackmyra are kind of getting rid of the seasonal releases, because they've actually been some very interesting kind of points of difference to the rest of the core range, and it's a shame to kind of lose that. But to be honest, the Mackmyra range is a bit of a mess. It's kind of a bit muddled, and there's all sorts of bottlings going on, and I can see why they're trying to streamline it and make it a little bit clearer. But I hope that they continue doing things with Ferrand, because the cognac element that's in there, and that's what's giving it that fruitiness, even though initially it kind of comes across more as Calvados. The cognac element works really well with that base Mackmyra spirit, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic combination. So I do have it available for sale. I'm going to check when it launches, because I'm filming this before it launches, and I might have put it onto the website a bit too early, so we shall see. So while stocks last, head to the website, www. I always say that way too quickly, www.spiritspecialist.com. We'll get there in the end. Or if you want to come in the shop, I have Björksev and I have Limousin, a little bit, not that much left, but I have a bit left if you did want to try it before you buy it, which you are more than welcome to do. That's me done. I shall see you in the next video. Cheers.